I get someone to read for us from Revelation 17, from verse 7, Revelation 17, verse 7 to 18. We'll just read that from verse 7 to the end of the chapter. And then we'll come back and break it down.
And the angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman, and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast that thou sawest was, and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was, and is not, and yet is. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth, and there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was, and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. And these have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. And he said unto me, The waters which thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree, and to give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth.
So last time we looked at what John saw there with this woman riding the beast that had these names written in her forehead. And after he sees that, the angel comes to him and says, I'm going to show you the mystery. And this is what the angel tells him to explain the mystery of this woman. Now, just having read through what the angel says and explaining the mystery of this woman, what stands out to people? What's people's impression? What's sort of the takeaway message from what this angel is trying to get John to understand? Galen.
It seems to me that this beast, in the great city, there is so much of revelation about all this. It takes up so much space in the book that it's so significant. The space, the amount of chapters, the amount of space that it takes up, I think is it matches the importance of what's happening, of what's going on, and of things that are yet to happen. But it seems to be there's 2 sides. There's the Lamb and the woman, and obviously the beast that she rides on, but also the fact that God's will eventually be done. It will be fulfilled. So it's if the words if the words of God are fulfilled, then prophecy will happen exactly the way God said it would. But the fact there's so much information in there, so much description that you almost can't help but you can only come to the right conclusion of who all the players are, if you will.
Does anyone else have any sort of a takeaway message from that, from the overview?
I don't know about the overview, but in verse 8 there, where it was and is not and yet is, it's playing hide and seek, isn't it? It is there, but it's, yeah.
I sort of think, you know, one of the things that stands out to me is, you know, this is that Babylon power, that you know, the antithesis of what is good and holy, the enemy of God, that's been persecuting and destroying God's people. And in the end, it's making war against the Lamb. It's fighting against Christ himself, but it will be destroyed. That is the end message for the hope of God's people that have to live through this time. You know, and it's not just you know, highlighting it as an end time power. Notice when it's describing it, it speaks about, you know, these 7 kings, 5 are fallen, one is yet to come. You know, it's the sort of the combination of all these kingdoms, all these kings that have reigned to oppose God's people, to fight against the gospel and against Christ. And you know, the first 5 of them have fallen, they've been overthrown, and these last ones will be as well. And there's sort of that assurance that the angel's presenting. And it's almost like when he says to John, you know, why are you marveling at this? Because when John sees the woman, she's riding the beast, drunk with the blood of the saints, decked in gold and precious stones and pearls. You know, she looks powerful, wealthy, lavish, and he's marveling at this. But the angel, you know, sort of pulls back the curtain and shows John what the end result will be. And the end result is, you know, the 10 horns, that they hate her, they make her desolate, strip her naked, eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. And the angels point that out to John, and that makes sense of his question at the beginning. Why are you marveling at this woman? Why are you marveling at this sight? I'm going to show you what the end result is of this rebellion. Now, jumping back to the first few verses we read, someone want to just read verses 7 and 8 for us again? Someone got that for us? Revelation 17, verses 7 and 8.
And the angel said unto me, wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast that thou sawest was, and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was, and is not, and yet is.
Now, there's lots of language in there that we've seen elsewhere in the book of Revelation. Do any of them jump out to people in particular?
The heads and horns.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we've seen the heads and horns before. What's the response of the world to this beast?
They are one.
Wondering after it, yes.
Yes, snap.
Hmm. And it sort of highlights two groups there. That all the world, they that dwell on the earth shall wander, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. Now, where else do we see something like that in the book of Revelation? I'm sort of testing your memories here. Colin, you're on mute.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Right, nothing's on here, but that's cool. When it's saying from the beginning of the foundations of the world, I realised just now that can mean two things, or can be taken two ways. Oh, thank you. One is the predestination view that the chosen people have been predestinated from the beginning of the foundation of the world. The other is that it includes everyone that's understood the nature of the beast from the foundations of the world. Can you help me with that?
I think part of it comes down to the question of how do our names end up in the book of life? You know, when we believe in Jesus, do our names get written in the book of life? Or is it a case that everyone has their names written in the book of life? And it's only when we reject Jesus, reject Christ, that our names get blotted out of the book of life. And I know there are different views on this. And there is some evidence both ways, but I'm more inclined to side with the idea that all our names, the names of everybody, were written in the book of life. And one of the reasons for that is I was trying to find some Bible verses that talked about promises regarding having your name written in the book of life. I couldn't find any. The only promises were, if you're faithful, I will not blot your name out of the book of life.
Mm.
And so that indicated to me that everyone's name was already in there. That's part of it, Christ paying the price for everyone. And in the judgment, people either have their sins blotted out or their names blotted out of the book of life. And so in that case, everyone had their names written in the book of life, but they've had their names blotted out. And they've put themselves outside of the grace of God, and outside of the protection of his angels and of the working of the Spirit. So they will be deceived. And they will wander after the beast.
So, from the foundation of the world, though, infers that everyone in predestination has had their name put in the book of life, even though they're not born yet.
Yeah.
And I struggle with that because that plays into the predestination camp.
Well, not really. I mean, God has laid a death that he made a way for everyone to be saved, right? That was a destiny that he placed before everyone. But some people have chosen not to walk in the destiny that God had for them. They've chosen to reject what he had for them and to walk after their own sins.
Doesn't the very sentence say whose names were not written in the book of life? So it appears that, there are people whose names are not written there.
Mm. And again, this is the idea, are they not written in there because they were never in there? Or are they not written in there because they have been blotted out and removed? As several places Christ warns that he will do.
Jesus said to the disciples, blessed are thou, for thy names are written. They were blessed. So that's the kind of promise, that they'd be blessed because they are written there. And I think Paul mentions it too about some of the believers. I don't know if it was the Corinthian church or somewhere there that their names were there as well.
Yeah.
It always seems to be talking about believers.
Yeah, because those that reject would have their names blotted out.
Then it comes back, is that a sort of judgment already that's happened though? That's what I'm wondering about.
Yeah, it very well could be. I think that the main thing, and probably more to Colin's point, and we'll get to Margarita in a moment, but either way, I don't think it hints at any idea that God's overriding our free will and he's just choosing who's going to be in, who he's going to save and not, just because of some arbitrary names that he decided to write in the book. I think it's just the idea that the plan of salvation was put in place, as soon as there was sin, there was a savior. But even before that, the plan of salvation was prepared. If humanity ever sinned, from the foundation of the world, there was that plan in place. And I think it's highlighting here that God wasn't caught unaware. This didn't spring up and caught God off guard, but he knew and he had everything in control. And those that trust him will make it through this time. They will not be deceived. Margaretha.
As I mentioned to you a while back that I was looking for quotations and texts, and I did find a lot of them in the index, but I didn't have time to go into them and look for the real thing. I was concentrating on my book. But just the other day, I was reading the investigative judgment in Great Controversy, and Sister White says this: a book of life contains the names of all who have ever entered the service of God. Jesus bade his disciples, rejoice, because your names are written in heaven, Luke 10:20. Paul speaks of his faithful fellow workers whose names are in the book of life, Philippians 4:3. Daniel, looking down to a time of trouble such as never was, declared that God's people shall be delivered, everyone that is found written in the book. And the Revelator says that only those only shall enter the city of God whose names are written in the book of life. Daniel 12:1, Revelation 21:27. So I think that Sister White is making an effort to prove her point by quoting Bible for about 5 different verses. And I think that we should go by what she says.
What comment does she make about those verses?
Sorry?
What comment does she make about those passages? Because it seems
Well,
that she's highlighting.
That paragraph is in the investigative judgment 480 and 41. So she's saying what she's saying and then quoting a Bible verse and then saying a little more and quoting another verse. The book of life contains the names of all who have ever entered the service of God. That's her first statement. And then she goes into Bible verses. Jesus bade his disciples rejoice because your names are written in heaven, Luke 10:20. And then she goes into different people who said something about the subject. Paul speaks of his fellow workers whose names are in the book of life, Philippians 4:3. And then she mentioned Daniel, and then she mentioned John, showing that those whose names are in the book of life will be saved. So I think that's all she says on that paragraph. But that paragraph is going into not real depth, but depth, to show that what she says in her first sentence is according to scripture. There are many others, because I saw lots of others, but I didn't have time to go and get them.
Okay.
Or I was working on something else.
I might be wrong about that one. But that'll be interesting to look into that more.
Because when it says elsewhere, judgment must begin at the house of God, and then judgment begins with the first person who died who had entered the service of God, which might be Cain, because originally he may have made a true decision, so his name would be in there. But because he didn't maintain that walk, if it was him, his name is blotted out of the book of life, but his records kept elsewhere has to be maintained, because his name will come up a second time in the next judgment. But if everybody's in there, everyone, then Christ has to go through every name. You can't just scan, say, oh, well, he's not him. No, they go through everything. So it isn't relevant then to say judgment begins with the house of God.
I mean, that's just the starting place of the judgment. Because the other thing is, if you're saying that it's only those that have made profession that are in there, then it's not necessarily that judgment begins at the house of God, but that judgment only exists for the house of God. Because those who haven't been part of the house of God aren't even in there to have their names.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm,
They
in
don't
verse
have their names at all.
Mm,
But as she says, contains the names of all who have ever entered the service of God.
mm,
So they've made a profession and obviously surrendered because it's by faith that you get in there. But their names aren't gone through to the same extent of the others, because they can see straight away that they didn't maintain their walk.
mm.
But those who do, that's the judgment for the saved, for those who entered the service of God. That is the judgment that it's for.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. That's a bit more further reading for me.
Yeah, I found the pioneers more than Ellen White wrote about this book of death. How because of Adam's sin, everyone is recorded in the book of death. And when they profess Christ, their names are written in the book of life. And I think they were getting that that's the, everyone's in the book of death, so and it's not transferred till they profess Christ into the book of life then, but
Hmm. Okay. Well, back in Revelation 17, we've got this statement that they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names are not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. And it's interesting, we got a similar statement back in Revelation 13, verse 8. I'll read that out. It says, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. And so we see a very similar thing.
What verse is it? Sorry, Matthew.
Revelation 13, verse 8.
I don't know. Thank you.
And again, as the beast was, is not and yet is, back here in Revelation 13, it's also described as having the deadly wound and was healed. So it was wounded to death, and then the deadly wound was healed. So it also has this similar it was not because it was killed, wounded to death, but then it was again because it was healed. And so
In verse 8, sorry, in verse 8,
no,
the
sorry.
last part of the
Mhm.
sorry.
Oh,
In
yeah, you
verse
got a comment
8,
about verse 8? Yep.
yeah, this last part of the statement refers to the lamb slain. It doesn't have to refer to those that are not written in the book of life.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So in Revelation 17, it speaks about the book of life, written in the book of life from the foundation of the world. And in 13, it's referring to those written in the book of life of the Lamb that was slain from the foundation of the world. So it could be referring to either the book or the Lamb. Yeah,
what was the first verse?
That's a good point.
What was the first verse?
Back in Revelation 17. 17 verse 8. Revelation 17
okay.
verse 8 and Revelation 13 verse 8.
Mhm. Oh, I see. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, while the previous beast was described as, it was, then it had the deadly wound and it was healed. So we have the same was, is not, and yet is. In Revelation 17 verse 8, it adds on to that. What does it add on to that?
And shall ascend out of the bottomless pit.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So was, is not.
Sorry, and go into perdition.
Yeah. it will be finally destroyed and it's not coming back. It's not going to come back from this next destruction. Now, again, we'll look at language here coming up elsewhere. We've got this beast describing as ascending out of the bottomless pit. So it was, is not, and when it comes back, it's going to ascend out of the bottomless pit. Where is that a reference to? Where have we seen that before?
Chapter 11.
Yep, thank you, Margarita. Chapter 11. Can someone read for us verse 7?
And when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that is out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them, and shall overcome them and kill them.
Now, what was that referring to when we looked at chapter 11?
The two witnesses.
Yep. And who were the two witnesses? What is the setting? Who is this beast that comes out of the bottomless pit and makes war with them? And because we're trying to look at this in Revelation 17, we're told that this beast ascends out of the bottomless pit. And so back here, we've got another beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit. And so we're trying to just bring to our remembrance, what was this beast ascending out of the bottomless pit in chapter 11? Because we need that in our mind when we go into chapter 17. Because that brings this up, and we've got to say, where did we see this before? And how does this help us understand chapter 17?
It's referring to France, isn't it?
Yeah, what about France?
Is it atheism or something?
What
That's not-
happened? What happened there?
Revolution.
Yep. What was this revolution?
They basically signed into the law not to have the Bible or something along those lines.
Yeah, and what happened? How did this all play out?
Help somebody.
I'm trying to get more than a 2-word answer. Yeah, so during the French Revolution, when we went through chapter 11, we saw that these symbols were played out in what happened in the French Revolution. The beast from the bottomless pit. It speaks about there as being spiritually Egypt and Sodom, and also where our Lord was crucified. And we saw these symbols highlighted the nature and character of the French Revolution. It was this beast that came from the bottomless pit that waged war against the word of God. And its reign of terror lasted for the exact time that this prophecy had said it would. And so here, the beast from the bottomless pit is this atheistic secular power that arose to try to destroy religion and destroy God's word. And so in Revelation 17, we see this other beast, a beast that comes out of the bottomless pit as well. So this is something that we've got to keep in our minds when we're looking at this beast, that it's almost like it's being described as being this secular power, the secular anti-Christian power. Yet it's being ridden by the woman, by this church power. This, as we looked at this this apostate Christian power, this papal power, is riding this secular anti-religious beast. And this seems like a very strange merger, a very uneasy relationship between the two. And as we see at the end of the chapter, it turns out fatal for the woman riding the beast. Now, jumping back into Revelation 17, it talked about it was, is not, and shall ascend. And we see a similar thing coming in the next few verses. Can someone read for me Revelation 17, verse 9 to 11? We're going to see a similar pattern coming up again.
I'll read it.
Thank you.
And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth, and there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition.
So there's a few things happening there. The first thing I think it's interesting to note, when it says, here is the mind that has wisdom, that's a little bit of a curious statement. And if we jump back into Revelation 13, where we were before, where it gives us the mark of the beast, in Revelation 13, verse 8, it says, here is wisdom, that hidden hath understanding, count the number of the beast. Then tells us it's 666. And here it's saying, here's the mind that hath wisdom. And so, again, this is another connection between Revelation 17 and Revelation 13. It's not identical, but both passages call for wisdom and identifying these specific characteristics of this final persecuting power of God's people. And I think in Revelation 13, it calls for wisdom in identifying what the mark is. Here it's calling for wisdom when it's trying to point to the power that's going to enforce it, or the power who produces this mark. Now, it tells us first that the 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. And I find this is an interesting description. It describes the woman being seated on 7 mountains. I'm just going to share a picture here. You can see this coin. You can see the name there, Caesar Vespasian. It's Emperor Vespasian, who was the emperor that was ruling when John wrote Revelation. This coin was dated to I forget the exact date, but it was prior to when John wrote Revelation. And notice on this side, it's the goddess Roma being depicted there. Rome is depicted as this woman. She's seated, if you can see there, it's a little faded, but there are 7 hills. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That Rome there is depicted as a woman seated on 7 hills. And so I just find that interesting. That's how Rome depicted itself, as a woman seated on 7 hills. And just another side note is under the hills, you see there's this beast. That's the Romulus and Remus feeding off the wolf. being the beast there also, which is under where the woman is seated. And so I think clearly the reference to this woman seated on 7 hills or 7 mountains is a reference to Rome. John is just pointing out this is Rome. One of my cousins in Australia I was talking to, she did her degree in ancient history and archaeology. And I was just curious when I found this. I was like, okay, if I was to ask you, what is the city seated on 7 hills? And she just said, just straight out, just Rome. I didn't even need to finish asking the question. As soon as I said a city on 7 hills, it was just Rome. That is how Rome was known.
There was a movie called The Seven Hills of Rome with Mario Lanza in it years ago, so other people know it too.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a very common way Rome was referred to. And so here, when it's telling us the mind that has wisdom, and it's saying that this woman is Rome, this woman is seated in Rome, this woman being the symbol of the church, as we saw before. It's the Church of Rome, the church sitting on 7 hills. And I think that's clearly identifying to us that it is the Roman church is the one who produces the mark of the beast. And then back in Revelation 13, when we looked at, and it says here is wisdom, and telling us about the number of the beast, and we looked at that when that was there, identifying what the mark of the beast here, and here the one that enforces. But it also gives us a second interpretation for the 7 kings, or for the 7 heads. And it tells us that they are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he comes, he must continue a short space. Now, often in Bible and prophecy, the idea of a king and kingdom are interchangeable. We see that in Daniel when it, speaks of the kingdom of Babylon, when he's talking about the statue, the middleman in Daniel 2, the head of God. He says that is you, O King Nebuchadnezzar. And after you, another kingdom will come, which is the kingdom of Medo-Persia. So the king represents the kingdom, and elsewhere in Daniel 7, it's just interchangeable. Sometimes it says this is the king, sometimes it says it's the kingdom. The king is the person that represents the kingdom.
Yeah.
And so here when we have 5 kings, it's the same thing. It's not necessarily looking at 5 individual people, but it's the kingdoms that they are representing.
Yep.
Now, we have to figure out who these are. What are the 5 that are fallen? The 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And then the beast itself is the 8th that will come. As has been mentioned before, much of this description of the beast is actually connected with Revelation 13, but also Daniel chapter 7. And in Daniel chapter 7, who are the powers, the kings and kingdoms that we see being presented in that vision? We had a look.
You're asking.
Yeah, we had a look through this when we went to Revelation 13.
Sorry, you asked. Sorry, I'm not sure what you're asking. Are you asking who are the 5 that have fallen?
Yep.
Oh.
We're looking at that, but as we said, that this beast has 7 heads and 10 horns. That's the imagery we got from Revelation 13. That's the imagery that we got, when it showed it being the culmination of the beasts from Daniel 7. In Revelation 13, how it had like a leopard feet of a bear, mouth of a lion. When you add up all the heads and horns from Daniel 7, you know, there are 10 horns and 7 heads. And so I think that's the best place to start when we're trying to identify this, because so much of the description of this beast and its image that it's made after in Revelation 13 draws from Daniel 7. So if we want to find out who these first 5 that are fallen are, we need to ask the question, well, who were the first ones in Daniel 7? Galen.
Well, then you would need to start with the lion with wings, which is Babylon.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the bear,
Yeah.
Medo-Persia.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got Greece,
Yep. You got Greece.
but
with
you've
leopard.
got 4 heads there.
Mm-hmm.
We've already got 2 that are fallen, but the 4 of the leopard makes 6. But 5 are fallen and 1 is.
Yep.
Now, John says it has the body of a leopard, and we know that there is still Greek philosophy and stuff in Rome, so one of the Greek heads is still going, possibly. Considering 5 are gone and 1 is.
Well, if we just look
I
at
don't know.
the nations that are represented there, the kingdoms, you know, it's Babylon, Medo-Persia,
Medo-Persia,
Greece.
Greece, and Rome.
and Rome. And then the Roman beast itself is described in detail as having another power emerging from it, and that was papal Rome. You had pagan
Mhm.
Rome and then papal Rome. And I believe that those first 5, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome, and then papal Rome, are the 5 that are pictured as being fallen. And
Yeah.
one of the reasons for that is, well, that's the background of the vision. But when the angel is speaking to John here, saying 5 are fallen, 1 is, back in verse 3, when he was shown this vision, he says the angel carried him away into the wilderness and showed him this. That he's showing him this woman riding the beast in the wilderness. Now, what does the wilderness represent? Where else have we seen the wilderness being used in the book of Revelation?
Wasn't it the woman? God took out the woman
Uh,
to 12:6, and the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. So that's that time frame that we know so well.
Yep. Excellent. And so I suppose the question to ask there is what did that wilderness represent? Why was the woman fleeing into the wilderness? What was happening to her that was the place where she was dwelling? Galen.
That was the Christians that were persecuted in Europe, which is a populous area, sorry, both from civil powers and from religious powers. So they took off to North America, which was not a populated area, which is from the land beast, the beast that came up from the land, and they wanted freedom from kings and freedom from popes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's where we get the lamb with two horns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was during the time of the church was suffering persecution and was fleeing, and the sort of the I suppose the final place of habitation for it was in America. But there was a lot of time before America was even discovered where the church was suffering in this persecution. But as you pointed out there, the wilderness was the place that woman went during her time of persecution, when she was suffering during that 1260 days. So if we're back in Revelation 17 and we're looking at this woman being the papal power that we looked at last week, what time frame are we looking at when it's the papacy in the wilderness? When did the papacy have its wilderness experience?
$1798, when she got the deadly wound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that is where John was taken when he's seeing this vision. And so when the angel's telling him that 5 are fallen, one is, and one is yet to come, I think he's speaking to him from that position. The 5 that were fallen were Babylon, Medo, Persia, Greece, pagan Rome, and papal Rome, because papal Rome is currently in its wilderness thing. And the question is the one that is, what's the power that is when the papacy was suffering, or well, what was the power that dealt that deadly wound? And we looked at that before. That was atheism under the French Revolution, that beast that came up from the bottomless pit. That was that power that was reigning during that time. And it says the other is not yet come. At that time, America, it was a nation rising to power, but it hadn't yet taken its position as it did in the years to follow. It was rising at that time, and it was, that next beast in Revelation 13. And so that's the 5 that are fallen: Babylon, Medo, Persia, Greece, pagan Rome, papal Rome. The one that is, being atheism or the secularism in the French Revolution. The other is not yet come, being America in that second beast of Revelation 13. And then we've got, and the other is not yet come. And when he comes, he must continue a short space. Okay, so he's going to continue. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. And I think this, a few things, when it says that this is the beast that goes into perdition, I think that's as well highlighting that this is the power that will be destroyed, by the second coming of Christ. Okay, he's not going to be destroyed like the other kings who were destroyed, had their nations taken over and ruled over by someone else. But this one's being destroyed for good. Galen.
So then when we've got the beast, the other that is not yet come, that would be Rome, the papal power healing from its deadly wound back in 1929 or whenever it was, and obviously she's been building ever since. So then when it says the beast that was papal power is not, because she had the deadly wound, even he is the 8th one, but is of the 7 because it's one of the previous 7, but it's still counted as like number 6 and number 8. So even though it's number 8, it's still counted as, it says is of the 7 because it was part of the 7 that went before. Is that, am I?
You've picked up on a few things on, you know, the parallels of the beast with the papacy. But remember, as we looked at last time, that the papacy is the woman that rides the beast. This is speaking of the beast itself, the beast that comes up out of the bottomless pit, which is where atheism emerged from, which seems to speak of this as a secular power. But one of the things we need to remember is in Revelation 13, the final player is not America or the papacy, it's the image of the beast. And so this 8th one, that the beast itself is the image of the beast, not the beast, not the beast of Revelation 13 itself. Is the image of the papal beast in Revelation 13. That's why it's described in these similar fashions, because it's its image. You know, an image looks like the original. So it's the 8th because it is a new power, but it's of the 7 because it's the image of that 5th beast, or that 5th one of the 7, the papacy.
Then I get that. I was kind of on the right track, sort of. I had the wrong. Okay, so then, so the beast that was and is not, he's the 8. So we know that to be what, apostate Protestantism, because that's the image.
Yeah, apostate Protestantism. That's you know, the second beast of Revelation 13.
Yeah.
The 7th king in here. That's how I see that fitting. And the beast itself is the image of the first beast in Revelation 13.
Okay. That's going to take me a bit to get straight in my head. I'll have to rewatch this bit and sort that out in my head.
Can I do a whiteboard? I'll see if I can. Okay, so we've got. No, I've still not got this. So you've got. Sorry, I'm terrible at writing with a mouse. Wait a second. I couldn't find where to get the words. Look at this. So the first one is Babylon. Second, Medo-Persia. Third is Greece. Fourth, pagan Rome. Fifth, papal Rome. Okay, so those are the 5 that have fallen. Okay, the one that is the 6th, which is, I'll just say, whoops, I can't edit that, but to get the incorrect spelling, there's atheism. The one who will come, this the 7, being the USA, that's the second beast of Revelation 13. And the final, the 8th, is the image of the beast. Okay. Now, when John was in the wilderness, so he was taken to the wilderness to see this. And the wilderness, we'll just say it was 1798 is when that wilderness began. Just a second, I'm just trying to find. Sorry, I'm just trying to find where the actual. No. Where's my pen for drawing gone on this thing? There we go. Okay, so there is the time frame that we're looking at. So the one that is atheism. That's the one that's in that time frame. By 1798, the 5 that are fallen are up here. Okay. So those are the 5 that have fallen by 1798. The one that is atheism. Okay. As we go through Revelation, so we've had the beast from Revelation 13 had its deadly wound. The beast from Revelation 11 has risen. And the beast from second part of Revelation 13 is yet to come in that. It's yet to play its part in prophecy. And the final beast, the one that goes into perdition, is destroyed by the coming of the Lord, is this image of the beast, is the 8th. And it's of the 7 because it's the image of the beast. It's the image of this beast, the first beast from Revelation 13. Does that make sense in how that's laid out? So these are the was. This is the is. And this is the will be as of 1798. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
What does who's the beast in 1712?
1712.
Is that the image of the beast, is it? Or
And the 10 horns which thou sawest, the 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but received power as kings 1 hour with the beast. Yeah, that's the image of the beast.
uh-huh.
And this is where, all the world wanders after the beast. And this is where all these different kingdoms in the earth give their power to this church-state alliance, or they create this church-state alliance. Now, can someone actually read that, what Ralph mentioned there from verse 12 to 14? Revelation 17, verse 12 to 14.
And the 10 horns which thou sawest, the 10 kings which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings. And they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful.
So what is this telling us next? What is the next thing the angel's wanting us to know about what's happening here?
A big alliance.
Mm-hmm.
They're all working together because they have one mind. And they will, if they're giving their power and strength unto the beast, then they're acquiescing and saying, we will do what you ask,
Mm-hmm.
essentially, as far as I can figure.
Mm.
But it would make sense that they receive no kingdom, because if you've got a one world government, one world, whatever you want to call it, then no one entity has power, has say. You've got this one world, whatever that's has got all the say, but all those kingdoms and powers that give her homage, I suppose, and say, okay, we'll do what you ask, they don't have kingdoms of their own, because it's the beast has the power and that's it. I don't know if that's right or not.
Mm. It is describing a rather peculiar governmental system right at the very end. And it's interesting to note that you know, from a bit earlier, but in this part here, the woman's not actually mentioned. It's just the beast interacting with the kings. You know, we know before the woman's riding the beast, the woman's in the background, but these kings aren't interacting with the woman, they're interacting with the beast. They're given power to the beast. But when it all falls apart, they hate the woman and they turn and persecute her. It's like they realize that she was the one in control, and she was the one that led them down this path and warring against the Lamb. And you know, as we looked at before, when the plagues start falling, it becomes evident what the people were deceived to do, what the wine of Babylon, this intoxication that they were following, what it's led to. And so they turn against the woman and they destroy her.
They first of all agree with her, don't they? They work
Yeah.
together. So there's something that triggers their understanding between the next to the next verse where they turn against her.
Mm.
So something happens.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. And I think it's the pouring out of the plagues that start that. You know, these kings that don't have a kingdom as yet, as it says, but they receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. It's almost like whoever these kings are, they're going along with this attempt to make this one world government. This Babylon's dream of ruling over the world is a complete system. They sign up for this thinking that this is good. This is going to be, well, definitely a benefit for them, but it's the direction the world needs to go. So we don't have, all the independent people running around, but everyone's under this one system of control, one system of governance. And so they give all the power to the beast, and they make war with the lamb, and the lamb shall overcome them. And notice how it describes that, for he is Lord of Lords and King of Kings. Okay, he overcomes them because he is powerful. Okay, but then it carries on to say, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. Their war with the lamb is the mark of the beast that is put out. They're not, it's one of those things that when they're persecuting God's people, as when Paul was persecuting the Christians, Jesus appeared to him on the road and says, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? Why are you fighting against me? Their war with the lamb is their attempt to destroy God's people, put out the mark of the beast. But that will not be successful. Christ will win and his people will be faithful. Margaretha.
I've always taken it that those 10 kings have their own individual kingdom because they are, well, actually 10 horns. A horn is a kingdom, that they have individual thrones because there are kingdoms, but that they get together now as one kingdom. And also the Club of Rome has divided the world into 10 regions and they call them 10 kings. It's interesting.
Yeah, I have seen that map. I'll see if I can. I'll do a quick Google to see if I can bring it up for everyone. This is, there we go. I don't know how well it's a little small, but you should be able to see that the 10 divisions that they've divided the world up into. And it very well could be that this or something like this is what it's speaking about, because that would fit, because these aren't kingdoms that exist yet, and that's what it says. These 10 kings don't have any kingdom as of yet, but they will receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. So when this world system of dividing the world into these 10 powers is put in place and part of this final world government, they're only gonna have that power. They're only gonna rule as kings for that short time with the beast. When they put their final plans of rebellion into place, God's not going to allow it to last for long. And we carry on in Revelation 17. The next thing it tells us in verse 15 is its final description of the woman. It says, and he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest where the horse sitteth are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. So again, the woman that sits on many waters, she's being supported by many people, languages, nations, and tongues. Okay, that's her support where she sits, is upon popular support, and that's one thing that stood out when we went through Revelation 13. That the mark of the beast is brought in by popular consent. You know, it's those that dwell on the earth that demand that the image of the beast is created. It's not forced from a top down. You could say it's a grassroots movement. It's got popular support among the people, and that's what supports it. But even so, what is her final fate? Galen.
So with the whole grassroots idea, even though they're feeding it from the top down, but they're feeding it in such a way that to the people that dwell upon the earth, it seems like it's a grassroots thing, even though it's what they want. So then what we have at grassroots over the past umpteen years is we have the whole climate change thing. So that's even though they want the whole climate change nonsense and things and climate lockdowns and whatever they're calling it and what have you, they're actually feeding it in such a way that now people are demanding change, including a little upstart from Scandinavia demanding that grown-ups do as she says. So then it's so in that regards it is a grassroots movement coming from the people. It's what they want as far as the climate, what have you, goes on, but it's still coming from the top. I don't know how to explain it, but it's the whole thing. If they want to raise taxes by 5%, they'll say we'll raise them by 10%, and then everybody gets up in arms, and then they say, well, I tell you what, we'll only put it up by 5%, and they actually get what they want, which is putting it up by 5%, but the people think they've got a good deal. It's that I can't explain it any other way.
Does someone want to read verses 16 to 18? And what is the final fate of the woman after so close, as I say, so close yet so far. We finally got this one world system, put it in place. But what is the final result of the woman who rides the beast and is seated on many waters?
Verse 16 onwards.
Yep.
And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree, and to give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth.
Back in Revelation 16, when we looked at the final plague, it says, and great Babylon came in remembrance before God to give her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. And then one of those angels says to John, I will show you the judgment of the great whore. What is her final fate here? at the end of chapter 17.
Her minions will turn against her
Hmm.
and destroy her.
Hmm. And they're not gentle about how they choose to do it either.
I guess that comes about when you, oh, what's that verse? Where you meet out, it will be met out to you double.
Hmm.
It's a really bad paraphrase, sorry.
Yep. I think in chapter 18 and part of the Wellman, it mentions that verse 6, reward her even as she has rewarded you, and double unto her, double according to her works, and the cup which she has filled, fill to her double. You know, the woman that was drunk on the blood of the saints now is, you know, burnt with fire and had her flesh eaten and made desolate and naked by those whom she deceived, by the kings of the earth whom she committed fornication with, by those who she led to follow her ways.
So then, does that come before the second coming? If they're going to destroy her, does that come shortly before the second coming? Or
Well,
is it all sort of around the same time frame? Because you would think that for people to get to a point to destroy her, then it would need to happen beforehand.
well, it's you know, the last events are rapid ones. You know, like throughout the book, there have been time periods of a day, an hour, a month. You know, a day, an hour, a month, in a year. You know, all these time periods, 360 days, 42 months. But in here, it just talks about, you know, that they reign for 1 hour with her. Behold her, in 1 hour is her judgment come. You know, it happens very quickly. There's not a long drawn out period. By the time God's ready to pour the plagues out, there's no need to delay anything. In Peter, it said, you know, behold, God is not slack concerning his promises, as some count slackness, but is long suffering, not willing that any should perish, but all come to repentance. You know, God's holding out and being patient, giving people more opportunities. But when probation is closed and every case decided, there's no need to delay. The judgments are being poured out. The destruction is coming. Babylon receives its judgment and its destruction. Right, you know, I'll say, yeah, right before the second coming, because in chapter 18, you know, the kings of the earth and the merchants and all the, you know, ship captains and sailors and stuff, they're all mourning the destruction of Babylon, the destruction of that great city.
So if they receive power in verse 12, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast, that would be what, a couple of weeks in prophetic time?
Mm-hmm.
That's not long,
It's not. However,
if that's to be read as prophetic time.
yeah, one of the differences with this and other time periods is when it's saying, like, you know, 1,260 days, it's like it's somewhat clear that that's a prophetic time period, because
Mhm.
there's no you know, common usage of that time period, or when it's a day, an hour, a month, and a year. There's no common usage of that time period. But when it says, you know, her plagues come in an hour, or a day rather, or destruction comes in an hour, you know, there are other common usages. You know, like we would say, you know, if my wife called and say, "I'll be there in a second,"
Mhm.
you know, by using the term second, I'm not implying a specific time period and how long it will take me to get there. I'm just trying to indicate I'll be there soon.
Right.
And so when it says in 1 hour, it could be referring to a prophetic time period, or it could be referring to it's going to be really quick.
Okay, that makes sense. Because we're told there's no more time prophecies, but this one is event dependent.
mm,
It can't be attached to a set point in time.
yeah. Well, I mean, to me, if it was a literal time period and it's what, an hour, which would make it 2 weeks ish,
Mm,
you know, that would somewhat fit with what we would expect, because probation is you know, closed, or closed at this point when, you know, the mark of the beast is being enforced. You know, people have this period, but by the time they go out and execute the death decree and they're seeking to kill God's people, it's over. You know, the plagues start pouring. When we looked at the plagues, that's one of the reasons the plagues are falling, for the deliverance of God's people. When the image of the beast is seeking to kill God's people, God sends the plagues in judgment and in defense of them. The time of trouble for the world is the time of deliverance for God's people.
and I guess it's a case of when she gets her way and gives her their power and strength, she's not going to once she's got everything she wants, she's not going to muck around. She's going to use it. I mean, once you've got all that power, why would you just sit on it? That doesn't make much sense. Yeah, it's like, I've got this now, I'm going to wield it. You know, so that would make sense. Mind you, that's human
interesting,
wisdom,
though.
which is nothing. But
It's not the woman that wields the power, though. It's the beast that she rides that wields the power. It's the image of the beast.
mm,
And then the kings receive power with the beast. So it's almost like in Revelation 13, those that dwell on the earth demand that this image to the beast is made. But as part of that process, the image of the beast grows to a worldwide influence, if you will, a worldwide system. And when that's implemented, there are 10 kings that are given power with the beast. And then those 10 kings, evidently, when, you know, that they make war with the Lamb, you know, that's the mark of the beast that's being enforced, the death decree against God's people.
mm,
But Christ overcomes them by pouring out the plagues, delivers God's people. And then those kings turn and destroy the woman. When they
oh,
realize
do they?
they've all been deceived
That's
they
what I was just
were
going to
led.
say. So they turn on her because they realize what's actually been going on, the
Hmm.
truth of the matter,
Mhm.
and nothing worse than a woman scorned. Is it how hath no fury like a woman scorned?
Yep. Well, does someone want to close in prayer for us?
Our loving Father, thank you for this time. Talks in many riddles in some senses, but we through faith have to accept what the Spirit shows us and to learn just more the need of keeping close to Christ and keeping Him within, so that whatever befalls us, we will be safe from it. It says that there's going to be much turmoil and much upset. And I can only imagine the turmoil of having no faith for those that choose against the Lord when He's first expressed to them. And like God says, He has no death in no pleasure in the death of the wicked, and neither should we. And we have to be ever mindful that we are expected to do our part in assisting people to come to know you and to experience freedom and the joy of having a Saviour. Just ask you to be with us all as we ponder this week ahead. Just help us to be in the Spirit always, and just ask for your kindness over us. In your name and through Jesus we base our confidence, Lord. Amen.
Amen.